What'd you say to me during that?
I said, like, I mean, obviously, like most people have been watching the news quite a bit over the past couple of days. I've seen a lot of compilations of rhetoric from both sides. That is probably the most comprehensive, what's the word I'm looking for? Compilation of that I have seen yet. Well done, sir.
I didn't do it. You saw at the end who did it. So I just wanted to set the scene for, like, how does this happen? Because it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
No, and I think this is when you go back to the old saying of we reap what we sow.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't gin up this many people year over year over year and then expect it to just dissipate.
And use words like,
right,
threat.
These are pointed words. And
yeah.
And it's that case. If you say something to 1,000 people,
mm-hmm.
2 of them are going to take it differently.
Yeah.
Now just start multiplying that number over 8 years.
And when you look at, you have somebody, obviously a 20-year-old young man who I'm going to assume has some sort of mental health issues, has been for, since he was 12 years old. All he has heard is this man is Hitler. He's a dictator. He's the biggest threat to our country. I'm sure you've had that conversation with your friends. If you could get in a time machine and go back and kill Hitler, we all do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you match the two things. So you match the fact that there's a lot going on in the world right now that fits what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm suffering economically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have opportunities. I'm told toxic masculinity. Whatever those talking points are, which political affiliation you have, you're getting hit with something. Mm-hmm. Both sides throwing barbs. And then someone tells you, well, this is the person responsible.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, whatever I have, doesn't matter who the person is at that point. You gave somebody an outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And that compilation told a certain percentage of them, it's Trump, it's the right. It's this person doing this to
this
you.
Group.
This side.
As 4 or 5 white men in here,
yeah.
How'd you feel about that?
Well, I mean, and I've been listening to a lot of these conversations, and let me be very clear. Like, rhetoric comes from both sides, but it seems like there's something about Donald Trump, for all of his faults and for all of his positives. There's something in him that broke a lot of people, and we crossed a line from, I disagree with your policy. I think your policy is dangerous for the
mm-hmm.
country. I think that your plan for X is bad for a certain people group, to you're a racist dictator. Oh, and by the way, everybody who supports you is also a racist dictator. To the point where I've seen an interview where there was a guy on a TV show, and I'm not really going to get into it, but it was on Piers Morgan, and he said he didn't care at all about the firefighter that died.
That was Destiny.
Yeah.
Destiny said that.
Yeah, and it's like that's the point that we're at now, where most normal people can look at the human suffering in a situation like that and have some form of compassion. Even for Trump, you don't like him, you want him gone, you wish he was never president, never want to be president again. You still have to have human compassion for those people. And to compare him to Hitler is just the most insane idea ever.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a good thing there where you said people were broken. This has broken some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look at it, something that I always refer to is the fact is as a nation we have a lot of broken people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's maybe whether you're young, old, indifferent, whatever the case may be, wherever you find yourself, there's a lot of people that feel broken. Okay? When a portion of the media breaks and takes a direction on either side, now you're overlapping. Whenever you start overlapping, we've got that Venn diagram. That middle. You took a hypercharged, broken set of people, and another broken group came in, and you're overlapping, and there's one thing in common, and that is that they're targeting something. They're saying, in this case, it's the right. It's Trump's election. It's the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
To that overlap, that's where the dangerous side comes from. And I think that's where you talk about, if you look at school violence or school shootings, it's a person who has an issue, who is slightly broken, and then something overlaps.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's other kids in the school that may have the same issue, but it's the overlap. Something clicked. And now when you have that combination, that's where that can go bad. So I think whether you talk about somebody with a gun or terrorism or whatever the case may be, it's that how do we not get to the point to where we're making all of that overlap, to where I'm taking a person who is susceptible to hearing this and acting upon it and feeding it.
Well, especially a 20-year-old guy who, my son's 20, okay? So I understand that age pretty well right now. His last 3 years of high school, he was locked out of school because of COVID. which affected him, trying to get into college and make that transition. For 3 years, 20-year-old guys like my son were told that their education, them moving forward in life, them having community, them being with their friends, their parents being able to work, was non-essential. They were beaten down and told for 3 years that they are non-essential. And then you are released into this world at 20 years old, this weird gap between I'm expected to act like an adult, but I'm not given all the responsibilities and rights of an adult. And then all of a sudden you have this chance to put your name in lights.
Yeah.
And something snaps.
Hey, go back to when you were that age. What did you learn at that age? 17, 18, 19, 20. What are you learning at that age?
I learned how much I couldn't drink.
You learn limits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You learn boundaries. And you learn what happens when you push too hard at boundaries. But you're doing it at an age to where you're still given that freebie.
Yeah, you're getting
You can still screw up, and people are going to give you that.
Yeah.
Those are the years where you learn how to make friends, lose friends, meet girls, break up with girls, and it's okay. You get over it in those periods. You get in a couple fights, you get in trouble, you wreck a car, whatever. You're in the mulligan years. These kids,
I love that.
They had to sit through those years and wait, and now they're 20. And now he's going to do all those things for the first time. And now there's consequences.
In your world,
Yeah.
in your line of work, you're paid to make threat assessments, and for some things, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay,
In our industry, yeah.
in your industry,
Yeah.
So sometimes the threat assessment isn't going to happen for years down the road. In other words, the threat will not appear until years down the road. There's a lot of smart people in this world. How did they not see if the behavior continued, X would happen? And maybe they did see it. And maybe there were people screaming from the rafters, but no one was listening to them. So, like, I kind of know why, but I'm trying to understand, like, from your perspective, in the threat assessment world, how did no one see the behaviors of a country or political parties
Well,
to...
They've been pointing it out. This isn't new.
So I just don't understand why people don't, like, get it.
It's how our society operates. We balance security with expediency. Okay? If you would like the security level that Israel has at their airports, we can have that. And it's lock solid. You need to get to the airport 6 hours before your flight. In the U.S., that wouldn't work, would it?
No.
We complain about 2 hours. So we lower the security and we raise the speed until we hit a balancing point that our population will tolerate. Have you ever gone into a federal courthouse and not had to take your shoes off?
I've never been into a federal courthouse.
Okay, well, some federal buildings you go in and you take your shoes off. Some you go in and you don't. Well, why? It's a magnetometer that you walk through, the metal detector. If it's sitting right on the floor, that bottom zone can pick up the rebar in the concrete. So you see sometimes there's a ramp you walk up on
Right.
to go through it. Well, if they don't have that ramp, sometimes the decision is, why is the line so long? It's taking too long to get people in here, which can be its own security issue. Separate conversation. Everybody's having to take their shoes off. Okay. Can we just turn zone 8 off? Yeah.
Which is the bottom zone
Which
of
is the lowest zone. It could be 8, could be 10, depending on the model.